Hello and welcome to another edition of Mission Matters here at Salem First Presbyterian Church. I'm Rob Thrasher, Minister of Discipleship and Mission. In this week's episode, we're chatting with Esther Wakeman, who's serving in Chiang Mai, Thailand at Payap University. Let's hear what she has to say.
Hi, I'm Esther Wakeman, a mission co-worker in Chiang Mai, Thailand. And I get to work at Payap University, which is the first Christian and first private university in Thailand. We have about 3,000 students, and I work in the chaplain's office, providing pastoral care for international staff and students, also teaching an ethical development curriculum for all of our students to kind of introduce them to Christian values, get them a taste of what Jesus was about. I also teach in our McGillivray College of Divinity, our seminary, teach Thai students both at the bachelor and master level in pastoral care and counseling. I love being here and having the opportunity to share God's love at Payap University and to strengthen students preparing for pastoral ministry in counseling, that they can really impact Thai society at a time of a lot of social change, families needing support, churches needing support, addressing all kinds of issues in the most effective ways that we know about. Not just in human ways, but really depending on God's Spirit to be at work in hearts and lives. In my own faith journey, about 20 years ago, I had a real crisis in my life, crisis of faith, crisis in family, marriage, and God revealed God's self to me in a very profound way. And that has given me a real passion to help people connect their hearts with God's heart in a way that they can really experience God's love and receive understandings about who they are and how God sees them in ways that sets them free to live life in the ways that God wants us to live. And that's my passion. And that's what I love, being able to train seminarians in and also do other workshops and those kinds of training for the Thai church. So thank you so much for your support. It's a great joy to be here and share God's love here and be able to share what's happening here with you all. Thank you.
Welcome, Esther. We're glad to have you on this week's edition of Mission Matters.
I'm glad to be here.
So one of my first questions for you, since we already saw the clip of what you've been about, we just want to know how you're doing. How are you and your loved ones during this time of pandemic with the whole COVID-19 thing going around?
Well, the short answer is we're doing really well. I'm still pretty much hunkered down with my husband, Rob Collins, and he's 81 years old. And so I've been really concerned about making sure that we keep him safe. And that's led to some interesting conversations because he's a lot less worried. But for the most part, we really enjoyed being together. It's been really good for us. 3 of our 6 kids live here in Chiang Mai. And so after several weeks of really strict lockdown, we did start having our regular Sunday night family pizza dinners outside, distant, really working on keeping one another safe. 2 of our kids live, one in Washington, one in Oregon, and they're doing really well, hunkered down with their kids. We have one in Germany. She's also doing really well. Thanks.
That's wonderful. You have a grandbaby too over the last, it was like 2 years ago that you had a grandbaby?
I had 2 grandbabies over the last year. So one was born in Germany in March a year ago, and one was born in Bremerton, Washington in July 9th last year.
Yeah. Oh, you must be itching to get to see those little ones, huh?
It's really hard thinking about not being able to see them for a while, just being all unfold. So yeah, but we were all together at Christmas, and that was wonderful.
Oh, good. So glad to hear you're all doing well. Next question. So how has this pandemic affected your work in the ministry that you're doing at Payap University?
Sure. So one of my jobs is teaching. I teach pastoral care and counseling to seminarians, and I will be preparing that course to be an online course. So that's a huge challenge for me, but I have a really good teaching assistant, and she's going to help and I'm sure we'll have fun. So that's one thing. Another thing I teach is an ethical development course to all of our students. And that's going to need to go online too, which is a great opportunity actually to really put our students, give them freedom to learn the stuff on their own and then just present it in any kind of creative way that they want to do that. So I'm looking forward to that. I was meant to be in the States for 2 months now, but because I stayed back in Thailand, I have more time to work on getting those courses ready. So it's been a benefit to me. And I'm still getting to do some interpretation, like this interview and some other things. So I'm trying not to work twice as hard, but it's been a big change. The other thing I do is pastoral care and counseling. So I've been able to keep up our prayer meetings on Zoom and one-on-one mentoring and counseling. And I'm actually doing a lot more counseling than I've been doing for the last few years and really enjoying that. It's not as good as face-to-face for sure, but Jesus still shows up and helps people, and we still get to connect, and people are listened to. So it's really satisfying.
Oh, that's so good to hear. I'm thinking back to one of your recent newsletters, and I think you had mentioned that there had been some rough treatment or maybe some animosities brewing up with Thai students and Chinese students. Can you unflesh that a little bit?
Sure.
You
Yeah, we came through that really well. So there were some comments made by some people that were very hurtful. And one of our teachers, who's not a Christian, suggested that we have a prayer service or worship service to pray for the COVID crisis in China. And so we did that. And the Chinese students, also most of whom are not Christian, participated in it and sang one of their songs about their love for China and thanked the Thai people for what they had contributed at that point to the crisis. So it really was a community time of healing that was really good. I think COVID really challenges what is one of our main new markets. Chinese students really want to come and study in Thailand. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see how this all unfolds. Been reading lots of articles about higher education, and we already were in a real place of change, deep change socially in higher education. So it's a huge challenge and needs lots of prayer and wisdom.
But it's such a beautiful thing to hear that Jesus is still reconciling in the midst of stressful times. That's a beautiful story. Thanks for sharing that. So what has God revealed, or what is God currently revealing to you as you navigate these unique times in the history of our world?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. I feel like my life calling is to grow as a loving, joyful, and obedient disciple of Jesus, and to help other people grow as loving, joyful, and obedient disciples of Jesus too. And in this time, I think God is confirming in me that that is my calling, and I think it's the most important thing we can do, especially in times of such uncertainty. Only God knows where all this is going. We don't know. And God has plans for how we are meant to help make the most of whatever's going to come out of this crisis. Ephesians 2:10 says that we are God's workmanship, created for good works that God's prepared for us ahead of time. So if we can really get our hearts tuned into God, get close to God, and begin hearing what God wants us to be doing day by day, to me, that's the surest path through all of this. And so I've been reading a book by a guy named Jim Wilder called Renovated. Jim developed a life model which uses brain science integrated with the Bible to really help us become loving and joyful people and grow in emotional maturity as well as spiritual maturity. So I've been working on that and really passionate about that. And we've been able to work on that in our family more because of another thing that I feel like God is bringing to us, which is permaculture. which is a kind of approach to gardening that really learns from nature. How did God make things to work? And one of my sons who lives here, sorry, one of my sons who lives here is out of work, and his fiance, who is from the Karen ethnic minority group, whose family lives in a national park, and they have a farm there. They were both out of work. And so we've hired them to help us develop our home into a permaculture homestead. And it means we spend time together every day. Our relationships are deepening. We're trying to learn about how God has organized all this stuff. And this project just has potential to carry into McGillivray with the seminary students and help them about it. Many of them come from farming homes, but they don't really value it. And this has the opportunity to really help them value where they come from and to bring these skills into communities and help us all develop more resilience and sustainability. So it's been really fun. It's really challenging, but really, really good to just try to be following Jesus day by day and seeing where he's taking us.
I love that you're exploring permaculture. My wife and I are in the middle of, it's now a 10-year journey of transforming our lot into a food forest.
Really?
Yes. So we have, I don't know, around 30 some fruit-bearing trees and bushes, a couple of grapevines and raised garden beds and all kinds of stuff. We're not done yet. So it's so much fun. And I love that what I'm hearing is this is something that God has been putting on your heart in the midst of this pandemic, because one of the things I've been thinking about as we go through this time, this great pause, as so many people are calling it, that we need to get back to God's calling for creation care. And the permaculture model is so awesome in that respect. So there's some great folks doing some great work. My favorite is Jeff Lawton. I don't know if you've connected with Jeff Lawton's teachings yet, but he's a guy that has podcasts and videos on greening the desert. And so it's really fascinating stuff. Might be useful as you grow your own food forest.
Yes. Well, we put them to work. Paul and Dolly are looking online and learning all the time and bringing that here. And yeah, it feels Facebook, God uses Facebook.
Right.
I saw a piece about a family in Pasadena who grew 7,000 pounds of vegetables on 1/5 of an acre. And that's what it's like, oh, we got to do this. I had been looking for how do we develop this land? So it really is journeying with Jesus. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he made us for. And it's so fun to follow him.
Yeah.
And I'm delighted. I knew I liked you, Rob.
Yes. That's so good to hear. Yeah, I'm not alone in this world.
No, and you're doing it in your climate, and we're doing it in our climate, but we can still really love each other a lot.
Yes, we should compare notes one of these days on what we're growing and how it all tastes.
Well, and 10 years into it, we're just like 5 weeks into it. So
it's going to be a fun journey.
Yes, sir.
Yes, back-breaking work, but once everything starts producing, you're just like overwhelmed with the abundance of God.
Yeah.
That's the way I feel about it.
Well, that's what I tend to be kind of I'm afraid there's not going to be enough. And starting into this, I'm just realizing, oh my goodness, there is so enough and so much to share.
Yes.
So it's really good for the soul as well as the body, as well as the mind. It's brilliant.
So good. And it's so good to hear from you, Esther. Thank you so much for your time. And I think we can glean some prayer requests for us as a congregation on how to support you. Is there a couple maybe specific things that you would love for us to lift in prayer for you?
Well, I think for me to really get online stuff so that I teach it well as can happen, and um, also just for real wisdom for PIUP's leadership. How do we come through this? What is God's vision for PIUP now? What does he want us to be and do? And that we'll have the courage to do that. And this for permaculture, that it will continue to strengthen our relationship with our son and do healing work in his life as well as on our property. And then just whatever God has for it in the future, that would unfold wonderfully.
Fabulous. Again, thank you for your time. We love you, Esther.
Thank you, Rob. It's great to be with you.